Hello, this is Pat Lynch, and you are listening to the Career Pathways Podcast. We're coming to you, as always, from the luxurious KILT studio in the basement of the Lyon Mabry Simpson Library. I better rehearse that next time. But today, Gavin Brunson, who normally is on our team, cannot join us because he's out there with the Lyon basketball team, and they're won their first game, going to the semifinals. But we always have, at the podcasting board, way back there, producer Jayson. Say hello. Hey, as always, and I sit there, and it's kind of like if you remember the old show Remington Steele, that. Oh man, yeah. So he's the brains behind the thing, and I'm just up here in front of the mic. But we'll leave it at that. But our guest today is Chris Douglas, head football coach, Lyon College. So we're moving into athletics. We've done staff, we've done faculty. Long overdue. Welcome, Chris.
Thank you, Pat. Appreciate it. Glad to be here.
Yes, this is going to be a great conversation.
Absolutely.
First thing we always start with is kind of just tell us about yourself, kind of where you're from, kind of where you went to school, and kind of all the things that led to you arriving here at Lyon College.
Yeah, so Northeast Arkansas, I would have thought where I was born and where I grew up, I would have visited this place before, but had never been to Batesville, had never been to Jonesboro, never really been in this part of the country. But I was actually born just a couple hours from here on the other side of the Mississippi in Clarksdale, Mississippi. Okay. And so was born there, stayed there till I was about 5 years old, moved to Little Rock for a year, just in transition, but really spent most of my life growing up in southeast Oklahoma, a little town called Poto, which is, where Fort Smith is for those Arkansas folks, right across the border from Fort Smith for the most part, 15, 20-minute drive away from kindergarten all the way up through high school, and of course did all the sports. My favorite, I was best at football, but loved basketball, loved baseball, loved track in particular. That's probably the secret, that if I wasn't coaching football, I'd probably be coaching track. Loved track. Not, definitely wasn't super talented, wasn't fast enough, but, I actually coached 5 years of college track after I finished up at the college that I went to in Kansas, and coached long jumpers and triple jumpers and high jumpers, and actually had a couple of All-Americans in the high jump. Had one that went 7 foot, another one that went 6'10" and 3/4. So a couple pretty special guys there. I had very little to do with it. They're just really talented. But grew up in Poto in Oklahoma, and went to junior college first for a couple of years, and then ended up going to a 4-year school, a small private liberal arts United Methodist affiliated school, very similar to Lyon, and graduated with a BA in biology, a BS in health, physical education, and recreation, and then went on and got my master's at Wichita State with a emphasis in sports administration. So have done the higher ed circuit as a participant, and stayed in it as a staff. I've spent 30 years. This year marks 30 years of coaching. 28 of it has been at the small college level.
Small college level. Want to get into coaching for a second? Clarksdale, Mississippi.
Home of the Blues.
Okay, you're way ahead. It was like, gosh, it sounds awful familiar. Well, all right.
I still have a little bit of family around there, a little bit of family in Jackson as well. So we don't get back very much, but that's kind of where the original stomping grounds. My mom and dad grew up kind of in that area of northern Mississippi. So
amazing. The undergrad or grad, or when did you decide coaching is your career?
It was kind of a battle for me internally. I didn't put enough value in coaching. I felt like I should be doing something, and I'm going to use air quotes for the people that are just listening to the podcast. I didn't put enough value in coaching. And so I started off, actually, my first semester at Northeastern Oklahoma State community college or junior college back then, I was a mass comm major.
Mm-hmm.
And then I figured out, because in high school, I was 4 years in journalism. I was eventually the editor of the school newspaper. I was the main writer for the sports section of the school newspaper back when newspapers were actually a thing. Pat and I remember those days.
You remember them, Jayson?
And, I really kind of thought, I really enjoyed it. I was actually a stringer for our local high school.
Yeah.
I would go take pictures of junior high basketball games and write up the story, and got paid a little bit. Got paid per inch of print and all that. And I really thought that was going to be my thing. And then I figured out how little they make and how late hours they worked. And I said, I don't know if I'm really cut out for that. So I've always had an interest in human performance and how the body works. And so I thought the next natural path was pre-med.
Yeah.
And so I started off in that biology track, and that's where the BA in biology really comes from. That, along with, I really eventually started moving to that exercise physiology, kinesiology, exercise science track, but we really didn't have that at Southwestern in Winfield, Kansas. And so I kind of made my own major.
Right.
I had that biology / physical education side of it. And so I got out of it what I wanted to get out of it. And then it was up to me to make a career out of whatever I decided. But it was really not until that first year after graduation that I thought maybe this coaching thing would be my path. Because I stayed on, after graduation, I stayed on as a student coach. I'd finished my eligibility. I'd really graduated, but I took a few extra classes, took some marketing classes, took some psychology classes. I always say I'm one credit or 1 hour, one class away from finishing a minor in psychology, and just kind of was that professional student for a little bit, and did coaching for free. I was a resident director in the dorm.
Okay.
So, during the part of the day, I would pass out toilet paper and do my rounds and lock doors and make sure that no one was getting in trouble. And then during the day, I was coaching. And 1 year turned into 2, and 2 turned into 5. And, by 5 years of being in the same school, I felt like if I'm going to do this as a career, I got to move on to some other places and learn from some other people.
And that's kind of when the whole coaching journey, because I was, we were laughing beforehand. I did my minor league internet research, and I kind of found out that you've been in 6 states, which is 12% of the U.S., and it seems that they always seem to draw you back to Kansas.
Circle back to Kansas. That's right. So born in Mississippi, raised in Oklahoma, but we call Kansas kind of our adopted state.
There you go.
Because I went to school in Winfield, Kansas. Beautiful little town, kind of very similar to Batesville as well as Southwestern, similar to Lyon, and of course was there for really 3 years as a student, but then another 5 as a coach, and then left. A couple different places. Abilene Christian, I was there for a year. Was at Jamestown, North Dakota for a year and a half, and then the head coaching job opened up at my alma mater. And I'm only, 10 years sounds like a lot. Really, 8 years sounds like a lot. And all of a sudden, I've got a head coaching role.
Yeah. And
so I come back to Kansas and was there as the head coach at my alma mater for 5 years. Left a couple years back in Oklahoma, and then back to Highland Community College in Kansas. So yes, there's always been some sort of magnetic draw back to Kansas in one form or fashion.
I forgot to ask, in high school and college, what position did you play?
So high school, a lot of running back, a ton of defensive back, also played some quarterback as well in high school. And then went to college. This is back in 1989.
Yeah.
So there's not a lot of shotgun. Yeah. There's not a lot of RPOs. There's not a lot of zone read. I think I would have been perfect for that.
Right.
I have a very average arm. Yep. My best throw is probably on a line, probably 32 to 35 yards deep. Okay. That's not great. Jacking that 45-yard post route is going to be outside my wheelhouse.
West Coast or those little,
And everything's under center.
Yeah.
Well, when you're 5'11" on a good day, and you got 6'3", 6'5" offensive linemen in front of you that are going to Oklahoma State and the University of Tennessee and places like that, because again, I went to junior college, being under center and taking that 3-step drop and throwing it on time was not my wheelhouse.
Yeah.
So a move to defensive back was pretty early in my career. Played mostly free safety, played a little bit of corner. My senior year, I played almost all corner because One of my buddies who's in coaching now, been in college and high school, broke his wrist. So I blame him for me moving out of free safety to corner my senior year. But no, I had a really nice career. Ended up finishing my senior year as a first-team all-conference unanimous decision on the playing side. But the one I'm more proud of, and I hang in my office, is the academic All-American as well.
Really?
Yeah.
Oh, congrats. Playing both sides of the ball, that helped ultimately in terms of being a head coach?
Yeah, I think the playing, and a lot of players play both sides of the ball in high school, but what's really aided me was starting my career on defense and then being required just by job demands to move to the offensive side at some point, where that, I started my career on defense, but I've spent 3 times as much time on the offensive side now. Right. And so I think most people think of me as an offensive coach, but really everything started on defense. And so understanding how the other side of the ball thinks is really helpful. I hear a lot about other coaches doing this, and I would love to be in a situation where I had younger coaches long enough that I could move them to a new position to learn the other side of the ball, to help them with their career. Sometimes that's difficult, but having that experience on both sides really helps a lot, and even have coordinated special teams as well. And so, having that role as coordinating all 3 phases of the game, I think gives me a little bit more insight maybe on the game than maybe someone who's only been in one phase, one role.
The what were all the circumstances that led you to Lyon College?
Well, so the 9 years before I came here, which was the longest tenure I'd ever spent at any place, was at McMurray College. I had been the head coach at my alma mater at Southwestern. I had been the head coach at a high school for a couple of years. I'd been the head coach at McMurray. And just like we found out today, that Fontbonne University, which I have a direct connection to, that one of our assistant athletic director at McMurray when I was there is now the athletic director at Fontbonne in St. Louis, which is a SLIAC member institution, has announced closure at the end of next academic term.
What?
They're running out of money.
Oh, boy.
Just like we did at McMurray.
Yeah.
And so everybody blames it on COVID, but McMurray was working on closing and running out of money even in the late 80s.
Right.
But it really came to a head over just before Christmas break in 2019. Our administration informed us that we were in some dire straits, and we had just come out of a HLC, Higher Learning Commission, sanction, being put on probation for nothing egregious, but
financial stability,
some financial issues, some institutional control issues over institutional advancement, some academic tracking, some assessment, as we are now knowing that we have to do early and often here at Lyon. We were just coming out of that probationary period, and we were really running into a serious cash flow issue. And then on top of that, we hit COVID. Spring break, we'd send all of our students home. It's all starting to come out. I mean, literally on my phone today, I get a daily email from New York Times, and they said today was the day that the World Health Organization had announced COVID as a pandemic, and everything's starting to shut down. And so COVID definitely had a little bit of an impact on it. But we announced closure. Gosh, today is March 11th. I mean, we're probably 15 to 20 days from the day that McMurray announced that they were closing at the end of the academic term.
So then it's okay. Now I have to find there's a next step out there somewhere.
Exactly. And at that time, I was the interim athletic director, and so I'm one of the last guys to hold keys at McMurray College. But I mean, it was a really Providence. It was really a unique situation. When there's a head coaching role anywhere in the United States, you're going to have, minimum of 100, if not 200 applicants sometimes for a position like that. And with COVID hitting and everything kind of being in turmoil, really Lyon was the only football coaching spot that was probably still available, because all assistant positions were being put on hold because one, schools didn't know if we would continue to have football in the fall. There was a lot of furloughs. There was a lot of holds on positions. And so I'd applied for several assistant coaching positions, not thinking that a head coaching role would be an option. Just at the timing of it, when you're talking about March, most head coaching roles are filled. Yeah. And there was a little bit of a late change here, and they had held the head coaching position open a little bit, and then COVID hits, and that slowed down the process even more. And so I'm probably the only one in the world, or at least the football world, coaching football world, that did 100% of their interview online and really did not see the football facilities or the campus before accepting the position. So the only head coaching job that was open in the nation that I'm aware of at that time. So I feel pretty blessed, pretty special to be able to be the caretaker of this program.
Well, we're lucky to have you. How's recruiting going for you this year?
It's going really well. It's going really well. Each year has been better. That first year coming out of COVID, we signed 42 players. Mm-hmm. We had a pretty low roster number at that point. That resulted us being in the low 90s on our roster to start the season. The next cycle, we hit 52. Yeah. And then last year, our goal was to be around 62, and we ended up signing 77. It was one of those things where the momentum builds, and you can stand on the brake with 2 feet, and you still can't slow it down. Yeah. We were really trying to shut some things down, and guys just kept committing, and there's always some drop off. Our VP of Enrollment Management, Tommy Newton would say, there's melt.
Yeah, I love that term. Man.
Yeah, there's going to be commits, and there's going to be deposits, and there's going to be people that we're going to tell you, well, I changed my mind.
Right.
And that happens every year. Right. And we really thought, with being somewhere in the 80s, as far as commitments at that point, which is a crazy, insane number, we thought there would be tons and tons of melt. And then on top of that, we thought there would be tons and tons of departures from that freshman group in particular that was so big. And the amazing thing is we've retained 82% of our class from last fall to this spring. Now, your typical read on that when you do the checking, you do the analytics, is fall to fall.
Right.
So we'll see. I mean, you're always going to lose still a few more, but we've retained that class really, really well. And so I've never in my career, the most I've ever had was 72 in an off season at Southwestern. I would be going into my last year there. We currently, at this point in time, we have 93 guys on the team.
Whoa.
It's crazy.
Yeah.
Never have that many guys. And we only brought in 4 guys at mid-year.
Right.
So it's not like we had 70-something or 80-something and brought in a big transfer class or anything like that. So we feel like recruiting is going really well. We're definitely not bringing as big a class. It's going to be a significant drop-off in just freshman numbers this year. We're probably going to be in the high 40s, maybe 50, 52, something like that.
Team will be full. What's the total team number?
So we'll probably carry around 120.
120?
We were around 114 this last year.
Yeah.
So that's kind of our goal, is to be at that 120, 122 mark. Yeah. I feel like that gives us plenty of depth to be able to play developmental games. That's something that's really important to me. Yeah. Something I learned at McMurray, because that was my first ever venture into Division III. Right. Well, and I get this question even yesterday. One of our commits, his mother, got on the phone with me, and they just had some questions on a Sunday afternoon, and happy to answer them. But one of the questions was, well, what about redshirting? Will my son, will he redshirt? I said, you got to understand, Division III, there is no such thing as redshirting. Yeah. Once you play past the first game of this, or excuse me, once you practice past the first game of the season, you're using a year of eligibility. So if you're not going to have that's a Division III mandate, a Division III policy. Yeah. And it's the idea is to graduate in 4 years to finish your eligibility. So if Division III were to allow redshirting, that would encourage more schools to sit players their freshman year and encourage them to extend their academic career beyond 4 years. Yeah. Now, there are schools that do that, and they call it gray shirting, where they just come and be a student for a semester and then jump into the spring.
Enter the team,
Exactly. But if you're going to practice, you're going to use a year of eligibility. So if we're going to use that year of eligibility, let's use it for some game action.
Got it.
And so we try to create, but you got to get enough numbers on your roster to be able to do it, but try to give our guys some game action experience, even if it's inter-squad. It's us versus us, but we're fortunate. There's not a lot of opportunity. If we were in the Northeast or if we're in the Midwest, there wouldn't be a problem finding 6, 7 junior varsity type contest.
Sure.
But for us, there's just a lot more space between Division III institutions.
Yeah.
You know, so you're looking to pick up some different opportunities, maybe a prep school or a junior college to be able to play. So we've got a couple of schools, maybe a third on the way to be able to do that, to give our guys at least 5 game playing opportunities. For every home game that we have, we try to tie in a developmental game on Sunday.
You mentioned that phone call with the mother. Here we are. You're in the living room, and you're having that conversation. You know, here's the young man, here's the mother. Why come to Lyon? How do you go about? What's the pitch?
You know, I really focus on the fit. I want to know. I want to try to know as much about the student athlete as possible. What's important to them? What are they looking for? What are the parents looking for? Is it size of school? Is it location, distance from home? Is it a certain major?
Right.
Are they looking for a certain financial fit? A lot of it has a tendency to be in the normal bandwidth of playing time and academic opportunities and small field and small classes. I think there's a lot of that appreciation, but everybody's a little bit different. And so we hit on a lot of those hot topic buttons. If there's someone who knows that they have a certain academic path, we're obviously going to focus on that. And that's the one thing I really appreciate about Lyon. There is no soft major here. There is no major that we like, it's okay.
Right.
Like, they're all awesome. Right. Now, if you're looking pre-med or if you're looking business or you're looking psychology, like, you know, we can hit some home runs there. Now, finding people that value that at 18 years old sometimes is a struggle.
They don't know.
They don't know. Yeah. They don't know what they don't know. I mean, they may change majors 3 or 4 times in their academic career. So a lot of it becomes more of the heart stuff. We can talk the brain stuff. We can talk the facts and the information and the graduation rate and the med school placement rate and all those type of things. And we can talk about the vet school that's getting ready to come online and the dental school that's getting ready to come. I mean, some big stuff if you're thinking in career. But again, at 18 years old, it's really hard for them to see that far. Yeah. So we try to focus on the parents as much as we do the player and try to make them understand the quality of the education here, the impact that a small environment can have on someone personally. Of course, location has something to do with it as well. And so we just really try to convey those things. But at the end of the day, I think it's about relationships.
Yeah.
And so if we can develop a connection with player to coach or player to player, when we get them on campus, we don't eat lunch with them. Yeah. They eat lunch with our players. I tell guys all the time, 90% of your time is going to be spent with your fellow teammates, not with me. So let's at least get a little bit of face time with some of our own players on our current roster.
When you're in that living room and you're having that conversation, is there like this point that you can tell that they're going to be they're going to be interested in Lyon versus there's I'm talking to them and it's just this won't work. I mean, I'm sure there's probably a couple signs.
Sure, body language is important. I mean, I think just. How they carry themselves, their shoulders, their eye contact.
Right.
Now, I've been doing the recruiting side for 28 years. I mean, we have guys that we recruit 18 years old that they have a hard time focusing for more than a minute or two anyway. So, I mean, that's just part of human nature and part of 18-year-olds. And as we said, sometimes they don't know what they don't know.
Don't take any of this personal, Jayson.
Yeah, sorry, Jayson. But, again, that's why it's really important that we get parents involved.
Yeah.
So you talk about being in the living room. Since I've come to Lyon, we have not done one in-person home visit.
Oh, my.
Everything we do is virtual now.
Yeah, maybe I got that movie concept of,
but even before COVID, I mean, at McMurray, now the dynamics are different. At McMurray, we could drive 2 hours, 2.5 hours in a late afternoon and evening and do a night home visit and drive back and get home at 11 and still be able to have a life the next day.
Right.
Here, we literally would have to, I would have to spend a whole week in Dallas, come home on the weekend, back on a Sunday, and spend a whole nother week doing home visits and high school visits during the day. And it would, because just the dynamics of where we need to recruit. At McMurray, we recruited basically a 3-hour radius around in Illinois and St. Louis and Eastern Missouri, and we were able to find 40 players a year.
Right.
But here we have to go to Dallas.
Yeah.
We have to go to Birmingham. We have to go to Huntsville. Those are our sweet spots. And so that would require me to be gone weeks at a time and set up a lot of work ahead of time. And that's a lot of expense, spending a whole week in a hotel and rental car and food and all that. And we found following COVID, people are accustomed to being online and doing that virtual meeting. Yeah. And so at least for now, I feel like it's done us wonders because we have a policy in our program. No one makes an offer to join our program except for me.
Oh,
now, I get a recommendation from our coach, their assistant coaches who are working that area and talking to that recruit. But at the end of the day, I make the offer and I make the pitch. Yeah. And so, last year, in last year's class, I was on over 260 virtual meetings that would last some as short as 25 to 30 minutes, some as long as an hour. Yeah. And we calculated the time, Pat. Yeah. I literally spent over 1 week of time, all those meetings, making offers and doing financial talks and things like that. Because, parents, they got to know about how much this is going to cost and they got to know about the academics. And so we spent a lot of time doing that. But it allows me to be able to impact a lot more people than I would be able to if we were just going house to house.
Doing a road show, yeah. The upcoming season, kind of what's your assessment? Kind of looking forward.
Yeah, it's going to be interesting again. It's kind of like being in the NFL. Yep. It's like playing that home and home, round robin with playing a couple of teams twice or covering. Excuse me, playing every team twice in our conference. Yeah. But last year was interesting. I'd never been 100% independent before. I've never had to travel to Western New York, much less twice, to play a game. That was fun. It was grinding. It was tiring. At the end of the season, I was ready to take a long, long nap. Yeah. But, it was really, when I look back at it, it was fun. We didn't have all the success we wanted, but we had a good amount of success. And so obviously we want to capitalize off of that. But now we get to be in a conference, and that's encouraging. You get something to play for. I mean, people don't realize when you're not in a conference, there's no all-conference team. Right. There's not even an academic all-conference team. And with us transitioning from NAI to Division III, we can't even be like D3 football all-conference team or D3 team of the week or anything like that because we're not recognized fully as Division III yet. Yeah. And we still have another year for that to go. So at least we have something to play for. We have an opportunity to win a conference title. There'll be a conference team, an academic all-conference team. But I also am really excited because I think this is going to be a great fit for us academically. We're going to be playing very like-minded schools that are rigorous academically. They're in our region. We do have some significant travel. I mean, when you travel to Seguin, which is just a little north and east of San Antonio, that's going to be a full 9-hour trip.
Okay, I'm glad you didn't quiz me on that one. Seguin?
Seguin. Okay. Yeah, Seguin. That's where Texas Lutheran is.
All right.
So they're joining our conference, and so they'll come to our place week 4, and then we get to go to their place week 9, week 10, something like that. We go to McMurray in Abilene, which I've been to Abilene, and Abilene has 3 schools in it. They have Abilene Christian, they have McMurray, and they have Hardin-Simmons. But we'll go to Abilene early in the year, and then they'll come back to us. Yep. And so Centenary is a brand new program. We actually played them at the end of the last season as a club team. They'll be now in our conference, and so again, they'll come to us. We'll go to them. And then we have Austin College out of Sherman, Texas. Yeah. And Sherman right there almost on the Oklahoma border. That's going to be our shortest trip probably. That and Shreveport, where Centenary is about 4.5 to 5 hours away. Yeah. So we got a couple of, I would say, medium-sized trips, and then we got a couple that are closer to 10 hours.
I love it. So about travel about the same? You take it or
I mean, other than getting on a plane for the Buffalo game last year and a 16-hour bus trip, a 2-day bus trip to Western New York to play Alfred State. Kind of the same. Not a lot different from our Sooner Athletic Conference as well. We always had to take one flight to Phoenix. Yep. It's 10 hours either to Oklahoma Panhandle State or it's 10 hours to Wayland Baptist in Plainview, Texas, both Western Texas or Western Oklahoma. So there's a lot of similarities there. in the type of travel that we had with that conference. But just institutionally, the SCAC, the Southern Collegiate Athletic Conference we're joining, is a great fit for us. Where in the NAI, it's just not as strenuous. It's just not as academically rigorous to get in and to stay in those schools, where Lyon is a serious academic institution. That's one thing I really was attracted to the job when I applied, because I wanted to be a place that took academics and athletics seriously. But you also, to be successful, I feel like you have to be playing like-minded teams. Right. And sometimes when you're trying to compete in places where it's kind of apples and oranges, that's difficult.
Describing your approach to, as far as Lyon football, kind of what is your like offensive and defensive strategies? Kind of you kind of have, like, I'm sure, an overall vision. Then you allow your coaches to kind of mesh that with theirs and to come up with like now we got a game plan. So kind of walk us through, kind of big picture, where, what your vision is.
Yeah. So we have a little philosophy that motto, I guess. We want to play fast and furious. Big on now fast. Everybody thinks, okay, no huddle, up tempo, which is true. We definitely. I love beyond the birth of my children and getting married. I mean, the thing that probably puts goosebumps on my arms is when we get a big first down and we hustle down on the ball and we catch them trying to sub out, burn a timeout, catch 12 on the field, or we get it first time inside the 5-yard line and we hurry the line and run a play and they're trying to run a big 300-pounder on and we get them to call a timeout, or we walk in because they're out of place. And that gets me excited. So yes, we love to go up tempo, but it really is a coaching philosophy of keeping it simple and getting our guys really familiar, really comfortable, really knowledgeable of all the different scenarios that can happen in a game with some base stuff. Offensively, we're looking at a playbook of about 23 to 26 plays.
That's all?
Now we can. It's pretty. Now we can dress it up with formations and motions and things like that, but keep it really simple so we can rep it fast. Right. But defensively, also keep it simple, but mean multiple. I think what hurts offenses, it hurts in the preparation time, is when you see a defense that can line up in a 4-man front, can line up in a 3-man front, can line up in 3-man front in slant and angle, can line up in 3-man front and line up in B gaps and really plug the middle. That's really tough to prepare against. If I'm being an offensive coach a lot of my career, if I have to prepare against a team like that can line up a lot of different ways up front and present a lot of different looks, I have to work on one a day, basically. And that really slows down your preparation time. So if I see a team like that on the offensive side, I hope to do it late in the season when I've at least seen a little bit of each of those type of defenses throughout the year. But if it's someone early in this season and we haven't seen a lot of tight front, or we haven't seen a lot of odd stack or whatever it is, 4-man front, that's pretty scary and that's hard to prep against. So we want to be multiple and aggressive on defense. We really believe in bringing zone pressures, some people call fire zone, where we're 3 under 3 deep in coverage, and really stop the run hard on first down and put the defense in second and longs and try to put them in third and longs eventually, because those are harder to convert. And then offensively, try to keep it simple and let the guys play fast.
And I'm sure that to make that offense and defense work, you recruit a certain type of athlete, because I'm thinking just like run fast and furious for there's they're going to have to be fast so that so then it's just certain. I'm sure that you have like that prototypes, right, for like each player in each role.
You always have your desires, but Division III recruiting is a little bit more like high school. I don't want to say it's you get what you get, because you can definitely, you're recruiting
and train them.
You definitely have to develop more. But if we want more tight ends on the field, we go recruit more body types that are like tight ends. If we want more receivers or more running backs, we recruit for that. Prototype-wise, it's a little harder, because you're not always going to get the prototype you want. I mean, I would love to have offensive tackles that are a minimum of 6'2", and have a little bit of leanness to them and have some foot quickness, but sometimes you don't find that.
them,
You don't, or you can find them, but you can't get them because everybody wants them. I mean, even Nick Saban would have said last year, we don't have enough offensive tackles.
Yeah.
So they're just like they're recruiting, we're trying to recruit to find those guys as well. And so sometimes you have to play guys that you would rather have in another position, play this position because they're just the best you have, and we have to develop it. So like this year, we've signed a lot of tight ends. Over the last 2 years we have, and that wasn't necessarily on purpose, but it just kind of fell that way. And so we will lean to a little bit more tight end sets this year, where in the past we definitely recruited heavy at wide receiver and not had any tight ends on the roster. And so we're much more spread oriented offensively, and it kind of applies defensively as well. If we're going to run more 3-4 personnel packages, well, we better have a good number of linebackers. So having depth in those type of positions is important, and then you adapt your scheme a little bit to fit the personnel that you have, which I think it helps to be somewhat multiple in what you do to be able to fit your personnel changes from year to year.
Very cool. Now, doing my work, I started talking to your players.
Oh boy!
And one of your players, who will remain nameless, I go, if I was going to, got a podcast interview with Coach Doug. What question should I ask him? And this comes from player Anonymous.
Anonymous.
I've been told this upcoming season will be a change for you since you are now not involved as an offensive coordinator or as a quarterback coach.
That's right.
Can you walk us through the transition? And
for my entire career and being, I said earlier, 30 years coaching, 28 in higher ed, 20 of that I've been on the offensive side, and almost all of that 20 I've coordinated the offense. And I've coached running backs, I've coached wide receivers, but most of the time I've also coached quarterbacks. This will be my first year to step away from that. And a lot of it is having staff that can fill certain positions. Just like your players, you adapt your scheme to your players. Well, we also need to adapt our staff to their talents and their abilities. And so we were really fortunate last year. We hired a seasonal coach, which is someone we just pay for 4 months during the season from mid-July to mid-November when the season's over to coach a position. And usually it's a position that, it's what we would call a drill coach. Someone that doesn't have to be there all day, is not involved as much in game planning, not involved in recruiting, but can go out and help guys run drills and do an effective job there, but under a lot of supervision and guidance. Usually a young coach, or maybe it's a retired coach that is just looking to fill time and still stay involved in the game. Well, we were really fortunate that one of our coaches, Will Lawhorn, who started his career with me at McMurray as an offensive line coach and then came down as our defensive line and has now since moved back over to offense, got married to a Mackey up in northern Illinois, and that Mackey had a brother by the name of Eric who played quarterback at several different places, including Rockford University and University of Wisconsin in Platteville. And after finishing his eligibility, he stuck around and did a little bit of coaching, helping coach quarterbacks, and I found out he was available. Played a little bit of indoor football as well. And so he was our seasonal coach, but he was coaching safeties because, in late July, early August, I'm not moving away from the quarterbacks at that point. But he's got quarterback experience. And, of course, if you played it, you love to coach it. And so, talking extensively with Eric and, just learning his approach and what he wanted to do and how to throw the ball, but also just talking about offense, I felt like that was a good fit. And it allows me to do a little bit more oversight of the program as a whole. This will be my first time ever to step away from even calling plays. And and I mentioned Will Lawhorn, he has been promoted to offensive coordinator, so he'll be the offensive line coach, but also coordinate the offense as well. I'll definitely stay highly involved. It's my offense. It's our terminology. We always adapt year to year anyway, and we've allowed a little bit of adaptation to suit Will and also to suit Bryce Kinsey, our pass game coordinator. But it's still our offense that we've developed over the years. So I'll be highly involved in the game planning part of that. But I'm going to try to step away from coaching a position on offense and coaching a position on defense. I'll be a lot more invested in the day-to-day game planning of special teams, but be able to have that CEO role to be able to help both sides of the ball. We have a new defensive coordinator, now not new to me because he coached with me for 2 years at McMurray as our D-line coach, and then I promoted him to defense coordinator for that last season in 2019. And he's gone on and coordinated at his alma mater for a few years, and we were able to steal him away from them and come down here. And so really excited to add Andy Piter to the staff, and he'll bring that experience, but also that experience with me. Right. And so that relationship's already built, and it's just kind of picked up where it left off back in 2019. But that'll allow me to help on both sides of the ball and be a resource for both of them. And as a head coach, your role is to coach the coaches. And so that's going to allow me, instead of me having to focus so much time and energy, brain power on what are we going to call on 3rd and 7 from the right hash on the 43-yard line going in, I can now I'll leave some of that up to Coach Lawhorn, and I can more big picture than small picture. Or,
and it's from coming from the business world you mentioned that you're now the CEO, and it's interesting because when I look at 120 people with you got your staff and players, that's a mid-sized company. In terms of that you're managing, which just still, and I've managed, when I was like in like business ownership, I managed still a small company. I mean, and I just think about if I had ever grown it, I wish I would have to 120 people. It would just the scale of that, and then so you got personalities, you got communication. I mean, how do you if you look at the enterprise Lion football, what kind of management philosophy do you have?
I learned really early on my first head coaching position at Southwestern. I'll even back up because I'm never afraid to talk about this. My first probably 10 years afterwards, I didn't want to talk about it, but there's 2 types of coaches in this world. It doesn't matter what level, high school, college, NFL. Coaches that have been fired and coaches that are going to be fired. Well, I've been both. So at Southwestern, I wasn't fired, but they asked me to find other employment. It's a nice way of saying get out.
Spend more time with your family.
Yes, I want to spend more time with my family. Yes, and I got a chance to do that for a good 6 months until we found the next opportunity. But back then, we didn't have the size of staff that we have. It's amazing the transition that's happened in small college football over the last 20, 30 years where, back then, even when I was an assistant, the only full-time coach, truly full-time coach as far as pay and benefits was our head coach. I was a full-time coach, and again, I'm using air quotes for the people just listening, making $6,000 a year. Now, I was getting benefits, but $6,000 a year. And this is back in, I get it, it's, 1997.
Right.
So, cost of living, salaries have gone up, but $6,000 a year still. I'm full-time. So there's really one full-time coach. Everybody else was a part-time adjunct, 3 o'clock coach is what we call them. And that's how it kind of operated in the small college world. Well, then eventually you started seeing at the small NAI Division III level, another full-time coach is a offensive or defense coordinator, and the head coach would probably be a coordinator, and then became 2, and then became 3 and 4. So we're really fortunate to have a lot of full-time coaches. Now, they don't always make the most money, but we got a lot of full-time coaches because coaching football is different. Like the difference and disparity in the style, the play, the requirements, the fundamentals for each position are so different. Like if it's basketball, everybody dribbles, everybody shoots, everybody passes, everybody defends, everybody rebounds. But not everybody pass protects. Not everybody is playing lockdown corner. Not everybody kicks. Not everybody returns. So it just, again, you're talking
more specialization.
But the recruiting side. Everybody thinks about football. I still get questions, or my wife gets questions from friends or people on Facebook like, oh, the season's over. What's your husband going to do? I'm more busy in November, December, January, February than I am in September, October, November.
Doing what?
Recruiting.
There you go. Okay.
It takes bodies to get bodies.
Yes.
Like to recruit 60 guys a year. probably takes a staff of 8 to 9.
Yeah.
To be able to cover that territory, to do it the right way, to get people that are a good fit for your institution. And experience is a lot of that. Like I said, again, try to coach the coaches, but to teach them how we want to recruit, and the consistency and the message and consistency of the communication is really important. So going all the way back to your answer, early on, I was doing a lot of stuff myself. Now that I'm able to hire staff, I mean, I joke, I feel like I should put on my resume assistant or associate director of human resources at Lyon College, because I'm constantly, a lot of my job, even now we still have an open position starting April 1. I feel like I'm constantly having to keep an eye on who's available, develop relationships with potential future coaches, because it is really about finding the right people. What I found out when I started getting into that position of getting people around me that could fit my weaknesses and make the program better, or fit my deficiencies, I didn't do that. I found people that were more like me. And I think there's always got to be that fit philosophically.
Right.
And that's part of the interview process and talking to others that have worked with coaches, but finding people that fit who you are but are not you.
Yeah. And
giving them direction and saying, this is what I want done, and this is the general direction of how I want it done. And, you know, sometimes that's got to be a lot more detail oriented and say, it's got to be just like this, this, and this. And some of it is, I need you to run with this and make this better. But letting coaches coach their position, coach their players. We always tell coaches, you got 3 roles here.
Yeah.
Coach your position. And that doesn't mean just the X's and O's. That's mentoring, that's academic support, that's setting an expectation and holding their players to that standard. Recruit their area, and then everybody's got some sort of operational duty, whether it's recruiting coordinator or performance and strength, whether it's travel and budgets. There's all sorts of roles. Social media. I mean, we have a specific role for a social media coordinator on our staff. And so getting guys that are wanting to do a great job, that are great people, is way more important than any type of X's and O's knowledge they have, way more important than any recruiting chops that they have and experience. I mean, that is important. Right. If they're not a great dude, if they're not a great fit philosophically, if I don't think they're going to be good for our players and make our players better, then they're not a fit for us. And so it really starts with that, just finding great people. Yep. And then we have a system and we have a process for onboarding and making sure. In fact, I was going through it today with Coach Briggs, who we just brought on as our defensive back coach just a little over a week ago, and Coach Piter. Yep. And we sat down and I'm going through my checklist, just like an HR director. There you go. I'm going through my checklist. Hey, have we addressed this? Have we talked about this? Right. And, you know, I listened to a podcast, a good year and a half ago, talking about how to save time in this role of bringing people on. Yeah. So one summer I took some time and I've developed videos of
like onboarding
videos because you know, now with all the digital processes we have, there's so many tools that we have to use, and so educating your staff on that is really takes a lot of time. And if you're having to do it like this year, where you're having to do it for 3 different new coaches, that just multiplies your time. So creating your own resources to help people get onboarded, and not just with some of the processes, but just the philosophy of the program is really important. So we utilize Google Classroom, and we just drop videos and different forms and documents in there.
In business speak, we call that scaling.
Yes.
So there you go. Yeah. Kind of important. You know, you're the head football coach. Obviously, it's performance on the field, but it's performance off the field. And you always hear the thing about the molder of young men and all that, but it really is a key part of what you do, and I'm sure you take pride in it. I mean, what's your approach in terms of kind of developing the total person, not just the player?
Yeah, so I'm not a huge fan of just throwing out the term mission statement, but our mission statement is very simple: 4 for 40. The 4 years that we have them, the 4 years that we have them in our program, we're trying to help them get ready for the next 40 years of their life. Now, I heard a coach say years ago, you know, don't tell me about the success of my players now. Ask them, 10 years, 20 years down the road, how successful they were. And so I really take it seriously. I take seriously the value of educational athletics and the role that we have with the institution, within the institution, of what they learn in the classroom paired with what they learn in the locker room. How to develop a goal and set a plan to reach that goal, their personal goal, but also their team goal. And living in an environment and being in that locker room that is very dynamic, very energetic. I mean, you're talking a lot of very competitive 18 to 22-year-olds full of testosterone, but also very diverse. You know, guys from different parts of the country, of course, different races and ethnicities and religions as well. And so just that diversity, I think, helps prepare them for that work world coming out of college, because it's going to be very diverse as well. And being able to work in a team, because particularly in football, again, it's so team oriented because of the disparity of the different abilities that each position requires, but the reliance on everybody to do their job. And so when someone drops the ball or misses a block or misses a tackle, that has a big impact on the program. And so I really believe that what they learn in the classroom is going to get their foot in the door for what's next occupationally, career-wise, but it's really what they learn in the locker room and on the field that I feel like is going to help them be successful in relating to others, communicating with others, working together with others. And so I tell our guys all the time, like, in my opinion, and again, I have a very biased opinion, I get it, so no offense to anybody, but like, you have the advantage coming out of college. You're going to get a tremendous education at Lyon College, and you're going to learn so many things being part of a dynamic team, and how to handle adversity. When you get hurt, when a teammate gets hurt, you have a bad game, you have a bad practice, how do you handle those things? And you get back up, dust yourself off, and go back to work. And so I feel like any of our graduates that are football players are at an advantage in any other graduates that are not. I mean, that's just my personal opinion. I get it. It's not everybody's opinion, but that's ultimately our goal is 4 for 40. And so what we drive that through is what we call the pillars of our program: classroom, community, championships. It goes without saying, it's competitive athletics. This is why we spend $50, $60, $100,000 on scoreboards. We're going to keep score. And it's important. You know, is it the most important thing in the world? No. But it's competitive athletics. We want to be successful. We're going to invest a lot in it. We want to win. We want to be successful. And there's value in that. There's also value in trying, and there's there's value in losing or learning from losses, but there's also value in success. And so we obviously, it goes without saying, we want to win as many games as humanly possible. Of course. Now, it's the how that gets you to the why. So that's what you got to develop. But we also, it would be hollow if we won 10 conference titles and went to the playoffs 10 years in a row, and none of our guys were involved in community service and giving back to others. It'd be hollow if we barely graduate our guys at 2.0 and 2.3. You know, C's get degrees. I get it. I understand. But C's don't get you in grad school. And I heard a figure a couple years ago, and 100% factual or not, but I think it's probably pretty indicative of Lyon. Nearly half of our graduates in 2021 went to grad school. That's crazy. I looked it up. The national average is 16%. What? 16% nationally, and we were around 50? So, one, Lyon prepares students for graduate education, but C's don't. And so we want our guys not just to graduate, but graduate well. And so we have benchmarks and standards and expectations for our guys. We expect our team to eventually establish a consistent standard of earning 50% of our guys earning a 3.0 every semester. We have an expectation, a standard of reaching and maintaining a cumulative GPA, or excuse me, average term GPA of 2.8. We track that every semester. And we got really close last spring. We were 2.72, and we had 42% of our team earn a 3.0. And so this spring, I'm really looking forward to seeing what that comes out. We just got midterms, and I haven't scanned through them all yet. We still got a lot of work to do with some guys. As always, when you have 93, 18 to 22-year-olds, you're going to have some guys that struggle, that have a little bit of work to do, but also I'm very encouraged with where we're at in that. So those three things really drive, as far as like putting numbers and benchmarks and goals to that 4 for 40. I feel like if they graduate well, they give back, they learn to give to others, and learn the value of competition in the right frame, and how to develop that plan and work that plan toward their goals, we're going to do about as good a job as we can with developing relationships with our players. I think we're going to put our guys out there in the best situation possible.
Excellent. One last question.
Okay.
This is a podcast about careers.
Yes.
You have young men that are interested in a coaching career. What advice would you give them?
Wow. Turn and run. No. It really is a calling. I think a coach said years ago, if you wouldn't be willing to do it for free, don't do it.
Yeah. And you have.
And I have. I have. And
Right.
I, going from a high school head coach, where I won't say exactly what I was making, but I took a $17,000 pay cut to take a college position as an offense coordinator. When we made that move from high school
Right.
to Kansas to the junior college, that was, we definitely had to tighten the belt quite a bit.
But there was a plan.
It allowed me, yes, there was a plan going into it and allowed me to continue my college coaching career, which I highly desired. Not that I dislike, or it just is not a fit for me. I like that age group,
Right.
and I like recruiting.
Yeah.
Like, there's a grind to it for sure, but I like going out and visiting other high schools, and I like talking to parents and players and getting on our campus. So I like that aspect of it. Sometimes it can be very frustrating when 18-year-olds, I think, make dumb decisions, but that's life. I mean, that's anything. So I would say be willing to live poor for a while.
Yeah.
And unfortunately, we're in this kind of bubble, and I don't know how long this bubble is going to last. And I get it. Everybody should have an expectation for a certain amount of compensation for fair work. I completely get that. I grew up in an era where when you start off coaching, you work for free.
Yeah.
And then you might work for a little. I mean, my second season coaching, I made $500. I went from 0 to 500.
Yeah.
And then I went
Yeah.
to 6,000. And I'm not saying that's what everybody should do, and I also don't want to be that old guy on my lawn, say, get off my lawn, but you got to earn your stripes. And and I'm a perfect example. What I said earlier, I fell into what should have probably been my last job in my career as the head coach at my alma mater, instead was my third job and first as a head coach. And I was nowhere near ready.
Yeah.
There's so much to learn, not even so much about the football side of it. Some guys can come in really early and master the X's and O's, and they can get on the board, the marker board, and they can draw it all up, and they can talk a great game. But until you've been in situations to handle a death in your program, to handle a disgruntled parent, to handle a major social cue or even legal issue with some of your players, you're not ready for that stuff. Yeah. Or just to handle issues that come up between players or between players and faculty sometimes, or players and staff. Until you've done that, I was asked one time, I was on a phone call with an athletic director, giving a reference for one of my best friends, former coach that's worked for me for a head coaching role. Right. And the athletic director asked me, is he ready for this job? And I said, no, he's not ready. He's not been a head coach before. You're not ready until you get in that chair. Right. And so I would say the same thing. Don't make the mistake I did. Yeah. I tell our staff this every year. Don't make the mistake I did and be. Now, would I do it any differently? No. But don't make the mistake of jumping into a job just so you can say you're a head coach. Right. Work the process so the process can educate you so that you can be ready for that opportunity. And so there is a progression to being an intern and then being a grad assistant or a restricted earnings. And there's not having your own, we call it having your own room. Like, I have the classroom for this position. Well, you're not ready day one, probably. Yeah. Some people get thrown into it, and that's fine. You're not ready to have your own recruiting area, but you can learn until you do get that. And then when you get that, maybe you got the opportunity to be a coordinator. And then from years of being a coordinator, maybe you're ready to step into that head coaching role. And even then, you won't be ready for it, but you'll have to learn the lessons as you go. I mean, I really felt, it was about 10 years of being a college head coach, 10 years of it before I felt comfortable being in it. I felt confident in being in it. I don't think there's any comfort level, but at least confident.
Sure. Well, it's all you're always learning.
Absolutely.
Well, Chris, thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Pat. I enjoyed it.
It's a great conversation, and thank you for everyone who is listening to the Career Pathways podcast. We're here with you every week with an interesting guest, and we always have to close it out way in the back. Producer Jayson, where can you find the Career Pathways podcast?
You can find it on 99.97% of the platform. Same number. The same number that is a percentage of bacteria that's killed.
Okay.
That's a highly precise answer and the right one. So again, thank you so much for listening to the Career Pathways podcast. We'll see you again next week. Take care.
This broadcast is sponsored in part by Lyon College and by KILT Studios.